All right, good deal. Well, today, I'm so thankful to be here today. And before I begin, I want to just introduce myself, tell a little bit about myself. You wonder who's this tall, skinny guy with big ears that's standing in front of you, and what makes him able to talk about this. So, again, my name is Corporal Matthew David Gilmore. I'm not from West Virginia originally. I'm originally from Michigan. My family's all still there. And if you know, there's a little town there called Flint, Michigan. Yeah, you've probably heard of it, the water situation. So that's where I'm from. I'm from Flint, Michigan. And when I graduated from high school, I tried to get into a ton of colleges. I tried to get into all kinds of universities. Everybody turned me down. And I could not get into a school because I wasn't the best in high school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had some ideas, but kind of shoveled it around. My grandfather was a missionary. And my grandfather said, hey, there's a little college in West Virginia called Appalachian Bible College down in Beckley, West Virginia. And he said, why do you think of there? And I said, well, where's West Virginia? I'd never heard of West Virginia. I thought it was the western part of the state of Virginia. I'd heard of Virginia. So he said, oh, you'll love it. There's mountains, there's hiking, there's whitewater rafting. So back in 1999, I left Michigan and enrolled in Appalachian Bible College. There, while I was in Bible school, I got my degree in biblical theology from there. And while I was in Bible college, I really felt the call to the mission field. And, this is hard for me because, yes, I'm a police officer, but at the same time, I'm an ordained minister. So a lot of times I shift between the two. So you have to just let me roll here. If I get too bad, usually my wife's in the back. She can hold up a stop sign or wave her hands, but she's not here, so you're all out of luck. But when I was in Bible college, I see Chip already waving his hands. When I was in Bible school, I really felt the call to missions, and I didn't know where I was to go into the mission field. But at the same time, ever since I was a little boy, I felt the call to law enforcement. I was so excited about police work. I was so excited. Every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, I was watching Fox, and that's when Cops came on. And I would watch Cops every Saturday. And I was so excited about law enforcement. I really wanted to be a police officer, but didn't know how I could do that, but at the same time, answer the call to missions. And that's when God kind of changed my heart, and I realized that, guess what? There's a great mission field out there of police officers who really need spiritual things in their lives, need spiritual help, need guidance, deal with a lot of the horrible things of society, have to work on Sundays, work on Wednesdays, they work on Saturdays, they work over Christmas, they work on Easter when you're in here, and they need somebody to be there for them as a spiritual help. And that's when the Lord really opened my eyes up to the call of chaplaincy. And so I got in with the West Virginia State Police in 2006. I've been a trooper now since, 13 years. Chip met me when I was just really green behind the ears. I've got big ears, so they were really green at that time. Back when I first came here, I spent my first 12 years in Berkeley County in the Martinsburg office, and now I'm stationed out of Jefferson County. But that's kind of how I got here. The people who aren't here with me, my beautiful wife, Kristen, we've been married for 17 years now. We have 3 children. I have 2 little girls, Emma and Carolyn, and my son, Anthony, who looks just like me. He's a little stockier than I am, so that's good. He got the stocky gene. But it is a blessing to be here with you today, and I apologize about not wearing my uniform. I love to wear my uniform, but I also like to breathe, and so when I'm not working, I like to take that vest off. But I did bring my hat just in case it gets out of control. I figured I could throw my hat on. So when we take our breaks, we've got a few handouts that I would really love for you guys to take advantage of, that we in the chaplain service here in the state police have worked hard for when it comes to church security. The first one, if you would like a copy of my PowerPoint presentation, please come and get it. Unfortunately, I only have about 15 of these that are stapled, but I have another 20 or so that are unstapled. So rifle through till you get to page 21 and pull out your stack. Okay, so you're more than welcome to those. Something else that I have, a sample church emergency action plan that we worked really hard to develop in the state police for you as a body, as a church body, as a place of worship. It's got all kinds of things in here about like how to handle with natural disasters, severe weather plans in the church, adverse weather emergencies, different viral things, disclaimers, all the kind of legal things that you might want to look at. If your church, if you're in here today and you say, boy, our church doesn't have anything, this is a good place to start. Also along that lines, we have a example copy of basically a security plan for a church. You're more than welcome to take a look at this. This is also a good 30 pages that we developed and wrote up about requirements for your safety team, about training, about how to handle verbal threats, how to handle the media, how to handle crisis response, medical emergencies, violent incidences. This gives you a good blueprint to start with when it comes to security in your place of worship. So this is up here as well. I'll try to organize them a little better here when we get on break. But I want to start out today with just a quick video, and then we'll get into the presentation here. I'm not the best at PowerPoint, so I'll try to do my best here. And hopefully you guys can. This is a quick video.
The sheriff here confirmed that there was a relationship between the church behind me and the shooter. We are told now that the parents of the shooter's ex-wife worshiped here. They were not at church yesterday, but they do worship at First Baptist Church. We also learned a short time ago that between 12 and 14 of the dead are children. 8 of those killed from the same family. Overnight, the quiet town of Sutherland Springs, Texas, trying to come to grips with the nation's latest horrific mass shooting. More than 24 people were killed during Sunday services at this small Baptist church. The victims ranging in age from 5 to 72 years old. Law enforcement officials tell NBC News the shooter was 26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelly, dressed all in black, wearing tactical gear, and armed with a Ruger AR rifle. He started firing outside the church and then entered the building, opening fire on parishioners.
As he exited the church, a local resident grabbed his rifle and engaged that suspect.
After being confronted, Kelly dropped his weapon and ran. Police later found him dead in his car from a gunshot wound. Although at this point, it's not clear if he took his own life or if he was taken down by that local citizen. One of the men who tracked down the alleged killer is Johnny Langendorf.
They said that there was a shooting. I pursued, and I just did what I thought was the right thing.
A former member of the U.S. Air Force, Kelly received a bad conduct discharge in 2014, and in 2012, he was court-martialed for assaulting his spouse and their child. For now, his motive in Sunday's mass shooting remains a mystery. Outside the church, witnesses and loved ones embracing, describing the devastating scene. One woman telling MSNBC 4 of her grandchildren were inside when the shots rang out.
My son was helping them up at the church, and there was bodies on top of bodies, and they were having to move the bodies to see if anybody underneath was alive or breathing or anything.
Among the dead, 14-year-old Annabelle Pomeroy, the adopted daughter of the church's pastor, who was out of town at the time of the shooting.
Do not lean.
Pastor Frank Pomeroy is normally behind the pulpit.
We serve a God that's greater than any normality that we think we know.
His sermons uploaded on YouTube. Now, in the wake of the tragedy, residents in this tiny Texas town are coming together.
We started praying for everyone that was involved in it.
On an overseas trip, President Trump was briefed on the incident, speaking from Japan overnight.
All of America is praying to God to help the wounded and the families of the victims. We will never, ever leave their side.
In a separate news conference overseas with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, President Trump said that what happened here in Texas isn't about guns, this is about mental health. I asked the sheriff about that sentiment. He agreed. He did not think, he does not think that this is an issue of guns. Meanwhile, they are going to continue to pour over the shooter's social media accounts. Guys, back to you.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on it.
We will not subscribe today. So before we begin with the actual PowerPoint presentation, we need to make a couple disclaimers. And the first one is that what we just saw on YouTube is a dramatic, it's a violent massacre that is not the norm situation to where we're going to face in our churches. We have a lot of different ends of the scale on this. And a lot of times when people think of church security, they think of, guys dressed up like Osama bin Laden or Al Qaeda is going to burst in through the back doors of their church. And they're going to, thankfully, they'll have Brother Thomas there, and he'll have his bazooka ready, and with his AR-15, and the 3 guys with their Uzis will jump up and be able to rescue the church when the 30 guys in their Toyota pickup truck with a 50 cal mount on the back come to attack. And we're going to talk a lot about when we see violence in our church, where do we see that typically? What we just saw from Texas was a dramatic, horrible situation. But thankfully in that we saw stories, horrible stories, but we also saw some people who were prepared and were ready to act. Between night and, as we do this, I'm used to standing with my Bible and my stuff here, and then I usually walk over here, but unfortunately we need to do the PowerPoints here. But between 1999 and 2017, there were 1,665 deadly force incidents at faith-based organizations within the United States. That is 884 since 2014. Why the increase of these attacks? Why the increase of these attacks at faith organizations? Solomon said, "The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun." That's from Ecclesiastes 1, verse 9. We have to realize that the violence that we have in our society today, the acts of violence against faith organizations and people of faith is not something new. This has been going on since the beginning of time, and it will continue. No matter what we do to try to prepare ourselves, be ready for it, these types of events, unfortunately, will continue. When I was, in America, we're very thankful. We're very blessed to live in a very safe society. Last year at this time, I was in the country of Myanmar over in East Asia, doing a missionary trip there. And in Myanmar, the churches, for a long time, have been under the force of violent attack, not from people from within, but from the government agencies, to where they show up with army officials and they kick the doors down and they end up taking people away or killing people. We're very thankful in America to be in this safe place, but Solomon says in Ecclesiastes that there is nothing new under the sun. The wicked have always attacked God's people, and the difference is now we're starting to see that more in America. The evil people want their agenda and viewpoint publicized. And the media says, what? If it bleeds, it leads, right? That's a lot of it. When I was growing up in the 1980s, and some of you before that, I'm looking at Chip back there, in the 1920s, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have those kind of things. We had the nightly news with Peter Jennings growing up, but not too many people watched the nightly news. It wasn't such a big thing. Now, when these types of events happen, that person's name is all over the world in an instant. They become an instant celebrity. Going from their mom's basement, not working, unemployed, depressed kid, all of a sudden the next day, everyone in the world knows who he is. Like the name Dylan Roof. People know who he is because he did something horrible. In the shooting at Columbine. That instant changed the way we saw violent acts in our society, because those two young men, those two troubled young men, evil young men, I would even say, did that act and it instantly became celebrities. Right or wrong publicity, if it leads, it bleeds. Since September 2001, many targets have been hardened. Nothing is more open with large crowds as faith organizations. A lot of us, we remember where we were in September 11th, 2001. and how that completely has altered our train of thought and the way of thinking in this country. As it was for my grandparents on September 7th, and when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, it changed the way they thought, and it changed their entire futures. September 11th of 2001 changed everything about the way we handle ourselves. And a lot of things since September 11th has gotten better. With security, a lot of the places have gotten better. We've hardened security at a lot of places. But one of the places that we haven't looked at or haven't touched is our faith-based buildings, like our churches, synagogues, different places where we meet. Those places feel like those places haven't even been touched. School functions, in some sense, but even schools, compared to the old days, are more secure. So even with our schools, they're more secure today than they were prior to September 11th. None of us like statistics. I don't like to talk about statistics, but I just figured I'd put a few up there just to kind of get our minds thinking. What are these? These are the total DFI, or deadly force incidences, that have happened per year based on FBI crime the crime information. You can see the numbers there. The number of incidents pretty stable. As we click to continue, look at the way that's jumped. You see a pretty large jump there? Pretty big jump. And if we keep going, it keeps getting higher. As we continue, the number of deadly force incidences in our churches continues to go up. Now, this doesn't account for normal crime. This is only deadly force. When deadly force has happened in a place of worship or a religious institution, as the way the FBI registers those numbers. With our obvious increase of incidences and those killed, what are some of the obstacles that we can see that are obstacles to securing our churches? And I'm going to open this up just for a second. What are some obstacles that you guys see for securing our churches?
We want everybody to come in, so you're open to everybody.
Sure.
I think that's one of the biggest things, is that we're so inclusive, but we want everybody to come in to receive what we have to offer. But we don't really, you can't do a background check on everybody that walks through the door.
Yeah.
Simply outdated policies.
Okay. Yeah, outdated policies.
They look at how you can increase, the fellowship and all of as he stated, trying to welcome everybody in. But you've got to be secure at the same time.
Yeah. Listen, we have a wonderful gift to share, don't we? We have a wonderful word to share, and we want everyone to be here to receive it. And a lot of times that's what happens, is that those obstacles come up. One of the ones that we see is the mental block. It's not going to happen to us, right? We're safe here. Or what's another one? Our faith is going to protect us from harm. Now, all of those may be true. And all of those are true in a sense. But, when I talk to teenagers today, I don't know, I would rather talk in front of a grand jury or be deposed for like 10 hours than have to talk to a bunch of high schoolers. No offense. Why is that? It's because high schoolers were exactly the same way that we were when we were high schoolers. And what was one of the big reasons for high schoolers? That first one, what? It's not going to happen to me, right? Why? Because in their life and in their culture of where they are, everything is instantaneous. And if they make a mistake, what happens?
Hit the reset button.
Reset button, yes. Oh, I just died in this game or whatever. It's okay, reset. You get in trouble in school, what happens? Don't do that again. Reset button, right? You paid your debt at this, you get grounded at home, what happens? Reset, don't do that again. It's that idea of those bad stories, what we tell these teenagers, it's not going to happen to me. You know, I've sat there in my patrol car with people in the back of my cruiser who I've gotten 3, 4, 5 times with heroin. And I've told them, I've looked at them in their faces, they're handcuffed in the back of my car. You know what everyone says? Every drug addict says in the back of my car, Trooper, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this anymore. And I tell them, I say, listen, you keep on this path. You keep going down this path. Then eventually I'm going to walk into your house and we're going to find you laying on the floor, cold as ice. And that's what's going to happen. You know, a lot of them think, it's not going to happen to me. Right? It may happen to that guy. It happened to the guy down the street. It happened to my neighbor here. It happened to our pastor's son. That stuff doesn't stop it outside. It even comes inside the church. It happens to this person sitting in our church, but it's not going to happen to me. Well, guess what? It does. Eventually it catches up to them. But that same mentality of it's not going to happen here is the same mentality that for a long time churches have said, we don't need this. We're not one of those churches. We're a tight-knit family here. It's not going to happen in our body. We're safe here. Our faith will protect us. Yes, God will protect us. But we also buckle our seatbelts when we drive. I also don't tell my children to go run on the interstate because God will protect you. Why? Because it's important for us. Yes, God is an amazing God and He will protect us. But we also have to use common sense. And we also have to be good stewards of the life and the body and the soul that God has given us by making wise choices. Like not running in the interstate at night with blindfolds on. Right? Yes. What's another one? The idea of using force concerns the church. There's nothing wrong with using justifiable force to stop force that isn't justified. And you know what? I scratched that off in my notes because I don't like that slide. So if you would take a mental block, take that and just kind of crumble that last thing up, because I don't really like that idea of Christ using force in the temple. I don't think it was the same kind of situation. In my notes, if you can see it, it's scratched out. But what is it there? The first idea, the idea of using force, concerns the church. One of the verses that is often turned to is Matthew chapter 5, verse 39, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. If someone strikes you on one cheek, what are you to do?
Turn the other.
Turn to them the other cheek. The words of Christ Himself. But this dealt with personal insults. And it dealt on a godly response in those insults, and a godly response to the way we should respond with godly love, not to deadly force. And it focused on our idea of Thank you. Retaliation. I've been in meetings all morning. My brain is still thinking about other things. What Christ was saying there is when someone strikes you on the cheek is an insult. To insult you because of who you are, because of the faith that you have, and the trust you have in God. The correct response is not to go and strike them back and say, you better believe I've got a good God, look at this, and you go at Him. But it's to turn the cheek and say, my God is greater than that. I can deal with the insults. In that time, striking someone on the cheek is like throwing a shoe at them in the Middle East today. It's an idea of an insult. If you remember when President Bush was up on the stage giving a press conference, and you remember someone in a Middle East country, they stood up and threw their shoe at him. For us, that's something that's shocking. But for that culture, that's the way they expressed their disfavor. It was a way to insult the person. And in biblical times, striking someone on the cheek was the same way. It was a personal insult. Christ said, don't respond by insulting them back, but respond with love. Continuing with the idea of obstacles, a church is a place where we're supposed to trust people. Boy, have we seen a destruction of trust in the church today? Yes. The concept of, you see what's going on with the Catholic Church. You see what's going on with the Southern Baptist Convention today. in our local churches here. The idea that a pastor, an elder, someone who's in leadership is supposed to be someone that we can drop our children off with, someone that we can trust, someone that we can rely on, and that person that we've placed trust in, that we've placed a lot of responsibility on, has abused that. The church is supposed to be someplace where we can go, to where we can trust people. And that trust has been eroded over the recent many years. I wrote down a little phrase here on my notes: in God we trust, in all others we ID. I like that. You've heard the concept of sheepdogs and wolves and sheep. We have to trust people, but at the same time we have to remain vigilant with those people. In law enforcement, I'm supposed to trust people. You know, in the 13 years that I've been a trooper, I'm not the same person I was when I first got in, back in 2006. I have a hard time trusting people. I have a hard time trusting people when they say they're from a church and they want me to speak or they want to shake my hand. A lot of times anymore, I shake their hand with a sense of, I don't really know who you are. Why? Because I've been burned so many times by people that I've trusted on the job, who have turned around and lied to me, who have tried to hurt me, who have tried to do all kinds of things. And because of that, my trust level has gone way down for people. I still trust my wife and my children, but even my children sometimes I'm like, I don't know. And you know, it's hard to be a trooper because a lot of times, you know, I talk to my kids and, you know, my son's 10 years old and we're trying to raise him as a godly young man and we're trying to do all these things. But sometimes when our kids get in trouble, I'll switch from dad to trooper. I don't know if, maybe if you're in the military, you can kind of, you know, but I'll be talking to my kid and my wife will say, Matt, did you hear about Anthony? No. What happened? He did this, and I got a letter from his teacher, and he did that. And I'll say, where's Anthony? Oh, he's upstairs. Boy, I go upstairs and I go, Anthony, where you at? Right? And I don't do this physically, but sometimes in my mind, what do? I put this hat on, right? And I say, tell me what you did. What did you do? I'm so disappointed in you. Right? That trust level. Why? Because that trust level has been eroded. It's the same way in our churches. Far too often, the people that we have put trust in have eroded that trust or violated that trust with us. That goes for everyone in our church, but it also goes for visitors. We must not allow the ignorance of the naive to keep us from protecting the sheep. Well, here's another one. What about the legal considerations? Boy, when this law passed, I bet every other phone call that our troopers attachments got was, what's the deal with this concealed weapons law, right? What does this mean? No longer need a concealed weapons permit to carry a firearm. I remember when that law passed. Boy, we thought, oh man, everybody's going to be out here killing each other, right? We're going to go to 7-Eleven, or I'm going to go to KFC to get some chicken, or Dunkin' Donuts, right, to only get a coffee. I only get a coffee when I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and everyone's going to have a gun, right? The cashier's going to take my order, and she's going to be like, well, I don't know if he gave me the right change, and reaching for a 9mm. Boy, we haven't really seen all that horrible stuff that we thought we were going to see. We haven't really seen much of a change at all. Why? Because, like concealed weapons permits, this is what happens when guys get concealed weapons permits. First of all, they tell everybody they have it, right? They tell everybody. Did you see my concealed weapons permit? They get their card out, right? They laminate it like 15 times. And they're like, you've seen this? I got my concealed weapons permit. Now I just need a gun, right? They go to the local gun store. They ask everybody they know. They watch 50 YouTube videos on what gun to get. They get the gun, right? They bring it home. It's like they just brought home a new son or daughter from the hospital, right? They come in, they name the gun, right? They tie a little blue ribbon around it. They give it a name. They put it in the most perfect spot in the house. And every day, for the next 2 days, they wear that gun everywhere, right? They wear it everywhere. They wear it to the store. They wear it to the bank. They wear it to go to church every Sunday. But then on the third day, what do? Man, my belt's not fitting right anymore with this thing. I'm not really interested, right? So they leave it off. And then after a week goes by, they're like, where did I put my gun? Right? And then after a month goes by, they say, boy, I haven't worn, and then pretty soon, a couple of years goes by, they haven't worn their gun anywhere. That's kind of I don't know, some of you are nodding. Maybe you have your concealed weapons permit or you wear yours faithfully, and I'm happy for that. But a lot of times when we get these really bad scenarios that people give us, we tell them, listen, that might be the law, but the majority of people still don't carry. They say that out of everyone who has their concealed weapons permit, only 5% of those people with a concealed weapons permit wear their gun once a month. Can you believe that? I hope it's different in our body here. Prohibited persons. Prohibited from firearms. If a convicted felon, or you're convicted of a domestic battery or diagnosed with a mental defective disorder, that's a big one. Or been involuntarily committed to a mental institution. Or I'd add on there as well, if you're a habitual user of narcotics, you can also be a person who's prohibited from carrying a firearm. What about you? What about those in your leadership of your church? Do they fit any of those things? When we talk about legal considerations for a church security plan, or what I would much rather say, a safety plan, you need to take some of these things into consideration. Because there's two reasons why church security is important. Number one, our own personal church testimony. Our own personal church testimony. Why is that? A lot of us in our churches, we work hard to build a testimony in our communities. We work hard to build a testimony with those we serve. And if something happens in your own church, whether it be an act of violence, a sexual predator that gets involved in your church and gets in, what happens to your church testimony when you're on the nightly news and they say your youth pastor was arrested for a sexual assault to one of your teenagers? What happens to your testimony? It's gone. It's gone. So why are these things important? Protecting our flock. That's why it's important. Number two, lawsuits. Something happens within your congregation. Are people much more eager to sue today than they had been? Yes, you better believe it. Trust me, I get told on a weekly basis, I'm suing you, I'm taking everything, you got it. I'm like, well, I don't have much, right? You can have my 1992 car, and I've got a PlayStation 2 still, so you can have that too. Lawsuits. Our own personal testimony as a church. Also, if you're an illegal alien, you cannot possess your weapon. I'm sorry, I just saw that. Or if you have a protective order served on you. Laws do not restrict the carrying of firearms in a church unless, this is a big one, unless the same is posted by the church and restricts it. That would be up to the individual churches. Yes, a church can post that firearms are not allowed in this facility. That's a legal code in West Virginia code. If you have a church and you say we don't want to have firearms here, your church can decide. We're not going to get into political conversations about this, but your church can say that we don't want anyone here to carry firearms. You can make that claim, but unless that, you can legally carry in a church. No schools, no DMVs, no federal buildings, there's other places. But if it's posted, clearly posted on all the entrances, then you can restrict firearms in your church. The church can also hire security for the services, but that security must be bonded with the state of West Virginia. What's that mean? It's a big legal mumbo jumbo of basically saying these are the people we have, they're bonded with the state of West Virginia. What does that do? It protects you legally. It also protects them because it institutes some training that needs to happen to keep them registered with the state of West Virginia. If you have any questions on that, we'll love to talk to you here later. Police agencies can also be hired as security to church gatherings, but it can be expensive. That's different than the one I had. But a little caveat on that. The only agency that cannot be hired as a security guard in your church, state police. So don't even ask me. I think we got like one guy here from my home church. I'll tell you, if you have police officers in your church, they suffer from the same problem that dentists suffer from in your church, doctors suffer from in your church, carpenters. If you work on cars and you own a car lot, why? Because from the day one you come in there, who are you? To everyone in your church, Trooper Gilmore. And if anyone's got any legal questions, they get a speeding ticket, what happens? They see me, they go right to me and say, hey, you wouldn't believe what this officer did. You wouldn't believe what this. I got this speeding ticket when I was 14 and only complained to you about it. It's a hard time to separate trooper from elder. It's a hard time to separate car mechanic. And now I feel guilty. My whole life I would always go to Don Bolus in my church. Anytime a car problem, I would never go to Don and say, Don, how you doing? How's your family doing? Right? I always went to him and said, boy, my carburetor is having problems. Guess what the last thing Don Bolus wanted to talk about in church? His carburetor. And so when my church came to me originally years ago and said, hey, we'd love for you to be in charge of this thing, guess what? Last thing I want to do in church is this. The last thing I want to do. There's other faithful men, there's other faithful women there that can handle those things and work hard at it. I'll help them. But if you would like to hire police officers to do that, you can, except for the state police, which is my excuse. Why is there an increase? Why is there an increase in attacks at our faith organizations? You know, thinking about it, a word from the Apostle Paul to Timothy in 2 Timothy, he said, Alexander the coppersmith did me much harm. Be on your guard against him yourselves. So the Apostle Paul told Timothy, who was his disciple, his son in the faith, what did he write? When he wrote to him in 2 Timothy, he said, I want to warn you about this guy, Alexander the coppersmith. Why? Because he's been a personal attack against me, and you need to watch out for him, and you need to be on the guard against him. Some other things that we need to really remember as we continue, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. We need to keep perspective of what it is that we're fighting. Why is there such an increase in attacks right now? Well, for a couple of things, our stances against hotly debated social topics, right? What do we got? A couple things up there. We could put a million more things on that list. Abortion, homosexuality, same-sex marriage and other related issues, other faith beliefs and religious practices. There are groups in our country today who support these issues that would commit violence to send a message. And when I say violence, I don't always mean deadly violence, but they can commit violence against our churches. I don't know where you stand and your churches stand on some of these issues, but our pastor just finished a topic in our church called Hot Topics. Well, guess what some of the hot topics were? These issues. Do you think these are hot topics in today's society? You better believe it. Well, what did our church do when we had this? Where did we say we were going to do this? Did we do it in the secret and be like, thanks for showing up today? This is what we're talking about. Surprise! No. What'd they do? They put it on the internet, right? Come to our church, March, whatever. We're going to be talking about the Bible's view on abortion. What does that do? Lets everybody out there know what's coming. Put it on the bulletins. Come to church next month. We're going to talk about homosexuality and God's opinion of that in the scriptures. You're basically And I'm not saying to change things, but the increase of attacks in our faith organizations is because there's a boldness in people that are against a lot of these things, that they will disrupt, they will cause problems, and it could resort to violence against some of these things because they're so committed to their ideas. I'm not saying not to do these things. Do these things. That's what we should be doing as a church. We should be speaking the truth. But when you do, be ready for it. Don't have it as a normal Sunday when you're going to be talking about some of these highly debated issues. Have it as a normal Sunday for visitors and for guests. But have a little extra guys around. Maybe have some guys outside. When we did these topics at our church, I stood in the back of the church. It's easier for me to stand back there because I can kind of hide because we have a larger sanctuary. But be seen. Be there where you can watch. Understand that these things could happen. It seems like years ago we could debate these issues civilly, right? We can have civil disagreements with people. Anymore, if we disagree with someone on these things, there's no civility with it, right? It instantly is something that people are willing to lash out over. Statistically, here we go again with the word statistics. What is the most likely crime a faith organization will experience? What are your thoughts?
Theft.
What was that?
Theft.
Theft. All right. Vandalism. Anybody else? Boy, you guys, I'm not even needed here. You guys are good. Yeah, the number one thing that we deal with as churches is theft and vandalism. That's the number one thing that we deal with when it comes to criminality in our churches. Burglary. While theft or burglary is the most likely crime a faith organization will experience, we now must be concerned about crimes of internal theft, criminal violence, vandalism, terrorism, and molestation, and there's a lot of other things I can put on there. Today our focus will be mainly upon violence in the church. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, we had a visitor come to our church. And I remember because they pulled up in a vehicle, they parked somewhere, and when they got out, they were kind of lost, didn't really know where to go. And so I helped them show them inside. After the service, when I came out, there was a Berkeley County Sheriff's Deputy car sitting by their vehicle. Guess what had happened while we were in church? On that Sunday, someone broke into their car and stole their purse. They left their car unlocked. They came to the church. That Sunday, that happened. That's bad timing. But the number one thing that we're going to see when it comes to criminality in our churches is that type of event. It seems like every month we get calls at the state police barracks about stolen firearms. Guess where they get stolen from? Cars. Remember that gun I told you that everyone cared about so much? Where did they keep it? Under the seat, in the glove box, in the center console. They leave it in there for months, right? Why? It's never going to happen to me. Right? They get out, they don't lock their cars. Next thing you know, gun on the street. I was just at the Martinsburg Barracks on my way here, and a trooper was in there. He got heroin, pills, marijuana, and 2 handguns out of the car from someone this morning. Wow. Where do they get these guns? Yes, they get them sometimes from pawn shops and different things, but they get them on the street. They get them on the street because these heroin addicts, these drug addicts, what do they do all night long? They don't work. But some of them, what do? They drive the neighborhoods and they do this. Checking doors, checking doors, checking doors. That's all they do. They go to Walmart. When you're in Walmart, they walk around the parking lot, check doors, checking doors, checking doors. That's all they do. I'm guilty as some of them for leaving my car unlocked. But I'll tell you, I've never left my car unlocked with a handgun in it. My wife has left her purse on the driver's seat before I've walked out. What are you thinking? But these types of crimes can take place, and we need to be vigilant for that. Take a break. All right, let's get started again. And before I get moving too far, I wanted to introduce somebody in the back. He's sitting back there being real quiet. But Nathan Harmon is in the back. He's with BSR training. This afternoon, after we have our good-sized break here in about 30 minutes, Nathan's going to come back up here and we're going to do a hands-on scenario with you real quick that I think is going to be real positive. So we're going to need to find some guinea pigs for that. So we'll pick the weakest among you to do that. So Nathan can start looking for somebody there, but we'll go ahead and get started here. You know, Reverend Bowers, yeah, he's in the back. When someone introduced him to me here real quick, he introduced him as Reverend, and he said, "Oh, now you know I'm a Reverend. Now you got me." It's funny. This is a rabbit trail. You got to. Usually my wife's here to stop me from rabbit trails, but yeah, thank you again.
Her hair is a little longer than your top.
That's good. What was that?
I said her hair is a little longer than Tipton.
That's right. Yes, much. She's a little more beautiful too, but I'll get myself in trouble here real quick. But it's funny, yeah. It's funny that, you know, when you get introduced and things, when I go back to Michigan now, you know, I'm just Matt. Everyone there knows me as Matt. And every once in a while, I'll hang out with my friends that I grew up with, and we're out, doing something. And somebody will say, "Oh, have you met Matt? My friend's from West Virginia. He's a state trooper." And immediately, it's like an instant buzzkill for the whole party. Everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's over there, lame-o," It's the same kind of thing when you meet a pastor. I've talked to some pastor friends, and they've said, I've gone and done some things with people, and we've been hanging out, and we're having a real good time. And then someone will say, "Hey, did you know my friend here is a pastor?" And it's instantaneous. Everyone just goes, "Oh," I'm not saying anything else, So when you're an ordained minister and a trooper, it really gets quiet. So we can marry them, bury them, arrest them. A lot of different things. So, and lead them to a good God who can save them. So, learning from others is so important. Learning from others who have been there, who've had the training, who've been there. And the Apostle Paul, and I already talked about Timothy a little bit, the Apostle Paul was such an influential influence on Timothy, his young child in the faith. And he gives them in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2. And if you have elders or leaders in your church, you'll know in that conversation that Paul gives Timothy all kinds of qualifications for an elder or for a bishop to be in a church, in a position of leadership in that church. And when we look at that word, their elder or overseer, that's where we get the idea of protecting the flock, a shepherd that watches out for those in our ministry. No one protected the flock better than David. Since Goliath is still out there and not going anywhere, we need some Davids here. I don't need to tell you the story of Goliath. You guys know the story of David and Goliath. When I went overseas to Myanmar, I talked about, when I preached in one of their churches there, I preached on David and Goliath. And we were talking about the full armor, wearing the full armor of God. And if you remember, King Saul came and put his armor on David. You remember that? It was great armor, but what was the problem? It wasn't the right kind of armor, right? David just needed his sling and his stones. He knew what he needed. And we need to put on the full armor of God. That's another side story. But here's David, and when I was preaching there in Myanmar to these East Asian people, what's one thing that's different about me and people from East Asia?
You're a lot taller.
Yeah. The tallest among them was about this big. So the guy that was translating for me, the pastor, Hung Ling, was translating, and as he translated, he would look up at me and translate, and then he would look up at me and translate, and the audience started laughing, and he said, "I'm telling them that David was like me, and you were like Goliath." And eventually he got so tired of that, he got to pull out a chair and stood on the chair so he could look me face to face. And it worked much better throughout the message. But here's David, this little boy, this shepherd of the fields. And here was this man Goliath. We read in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 23, and the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines. And he spake according to the same words, and David heard him. What are the words that David heard? The taunts, the threats of violence. They were there, but what does it say about David? It says that he heard the words. A lot of us, the problem in our churches today, in our places of worship, is that we know there's a problem, but there's too many that have tuned it out, or they're worried about what may come. David knew what was going on. You're hearing it today. Are you conscious to the threat that's around us? Who is it that can hurt you? You know, the difference between an usher and a sheepdog is an usher would always say, I'm glad you're here. But a sheepdog would always say, I'm glad you're here, but why are you here? Maybe not out loud, but they're wondering. When they see strangers come into the church that they don't know, they'll show love and compassion to them, but they'll also make a mental note of those people. What do we know about David? And he heard the threat, yes, but what does it say? He was criticized when he mentioned it. I used to have these verses on here, but I was told not to put too many Bible verses on my slide, so I had to change them. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 28, Eliab, David's brother, burned with anger against David and asked, Why have you come down here? Who is tending to our father's sheep? You have just come here to watch a battle. You've just come here to watch a battle. What was the problem? Was there a battle going on? No. What battle? There was nothing going on. The Israelites weren't doing a thing about the threat that they saw, the threat that was making threats against them. They all sat back and were scared and were worried. But David came and he heard the threat. But when he verbalized that he heard it and he knew what he wanted to do to take care of it, he was criticized by those around him. When the idea of church security and bringing this up with your congregation or with your leadership might come up, some of you might face criticism about some of those obstacles we talked about before. What else do we know? David was confident. David was confident. David said unto Saul, Your servant has kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and I smote him and slew him. Words we don't teach our kids anymore. Your servant slew both the bear and the lion. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing that he has defied the armies of the Lord. The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will surely deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Go, and the Lord be with you. Right? David was confident. Why? Because he was training. He knew what he could do, and he knew about who he was following. Heart that's trusting in God, habit of training. What is your plan if A, B, C, D, E happens? You will know what to do if you are trained. How many of you have been on an airplane? Okay? Boy, that's a statement about our culture there, isn't it? Almost everyone in here has been on an airplane. Only in this type of culture that we get that privilege. But even if you've only been on an airplane one or two times, how many of you know what to do with your seat cushion if by chance the airplane were to go into the ocean? What does your seat cushion double as? A flotation device, yes. And if the cabin would suddenly lose air pressure, what's going to drop from the ceiling? An oxygen mask. And when that oxygen mask drops from the ceiling, what should you do? Should you place the oxygen mask on On children first or on you first? Yourself first, and then help others that are around you, right? If by chance there's no flow of oxygen in your mask, what should you do? Just give a little tug, right? Give a little tug, right? Good, fantastic. You guys are really good. And in the case that this airline cabin would fill with smoke, what is placed easily on the floor for you to guide yourself to one of our nearest exits? Lights on the floor, right? Lights on the floor. Why do we know all that? Some of us, maybe we've only been on a plane 1 or 2 times in our life. We don't train in what to do. None of us, before we get on a plane, say, okay, kids, before we get on the airplane, we're going to train to know what happens in case we go down in a fiery ball of flames. Right? We don't do that with our kids. We let the flight attendants tell them what to do if the plane goes down in a fiery crash, right? Lean forward, protecting your face, right? But why do we know that?
Many of us have experienced it.
Yeah. Okay, maybe some of us have actually experienced some of those things. That's horrible. And as Saul said, the Lord be with you. I'm glad that you made it. But why do we know that? We're told that. And what are we doing when we're told that? We're listening. It doesn't matter if you've heard that speech 1,000,000 times when you fly. When the flight attendants stand up there to do it, what happens to the whole plane? They get quiet. And if someone's got their headphones on, what happens? The flight attendant will come by and say, take your headphones off. You need to pay attention. You need to pay attention. Why? Because there's a chance that something bad could happen, and you need to be prepared and have a plan. Well, you know what the problem is? A lot of us in our churches today, if something were to happen, we have no plan. We have no preparation. We have no emergency things ready, like are in these paperwork. You have no team prepared. Your pastor has no idea what to do. The people in the back have no idea what to do. The ushers have no idea what to do. And when the emergency happens, instead of putting on the mask and helping others and following the lights on the floor, everyone runs around and they have no idea what to do. You know, they say in the Columbine school shooting, when the detectives and the police officers came into that school and found all those bodies of children in that school, where did they find the children? They found them huddled, but where? Under their desks. They found children huddled under desks in the corners. Why? Because those children had no idea what to do. When that shooter came in and when the violent act happened, they did what was natural. And what is it? To hide. To get under our desk. When we work cases of murder, we usually find people in the same positions. We found people under their beds. In house fires, when there hasn't been preparation with children, that's where we find kids. When we know there's been kids that have died in house fires, we find them under their beds or in their closets. Why? Because those kids have never been told. They've never had their parents stand up and say, guys, listen to me. We need to have a plan of what to do when if this ever were to happen. You need to know what to do. In our house, we have plans. We know where to meet. My son has an emergency ladder that he can throw out of the window to get down. My girls know how to take the screens out of the window and how to go out on the front porch. Having a plan and being ready. David had a plan. He knew what to do. And when that time came, he was prepared. David was commissioned by the king, in the name of the Lord, go in the name of the Lord. You and your church will have to come up with your idea of how to do church security. And again, that word security is in there. Legally, if you talk to any lawyer, and I hope your church has a legal firm that you go to for advice, any lawyer out there will say never, never, never call your church security security. Why? If you call it security, it automatically implies all kinds of things that are there. And the minute you say someone is security guard at your church becomes liable for everything that person does. If you call it a safety team, it implies a lot of different things. And it doesn't carry the legal ramifications that are there if it's called a security team. Side note. How do you find those people? How do you find those people in your church? If I was to stand up in my church and say, this Sunday night, next Sunday, we are going to have a meeting after the first service in the fellowship hall. And everyone in our church who's wanting to be on a security team, we'd love for you to be there. You're going to have different people show up, aren't you? Please listen to what I tell you. The person you want to completely avoid, the person that you want to avoid, is the one who shows up with their 8 AR-15s on, their tactical pants, their 10 pistols. Why? It's a liability. Being in charge of a safety team at your church is more than carrying guns and being a police officer. You're not a police officer. It's more about talking with people, showing kindness, being prepared, having a plan, and when something horrible happens, being ready to act. But if you've got someone who's gung-ho, and they're the first guy standing in line, and he's got all this stuff, and he's like, where can I put this bazooka in the church? Right? That's the guy you want to say, you know what, brother Jimmy? If your name is Jimmy here, I apologize. You know, brother Jimmy, I really appreciate your enthusiasm. And you know, we'll have plenty of things that we can do to have you function here, but we really have a need for parking lot security. We have a real need for doing those things. You don't want to have someone who's hot-headed, who's known in your church as someone who's always wanted to do this. I really would challenge you, be careful with those people, because that's where you're going to have all kinds of problems. Your first Sunday, when a teenager gets rambunctious, next thing you know, that teenager is going to be in handcuffs, getting dragged out of the church by brother Jimmy, because now he's on the security team and things are going to be different here. I'm not telling you that to be rude. I'm telling you that to be very careful with that, because that's what can happen. But you need to have everyone in your church actively involved in the safety security team. Does the pastor need to know what's going on? You better believe it. Why? Because where is he standing? Who's a lot of time got the best view of the church? The pastor, right? And he knows when he's preaching a service, he knows that if something's happening back there, he can look to an individual that he already knows of, that knows the look that he's going to give him, or the hand signal to give to him. He can preach, he knows something's going on, and he can give a hand signal that only the guy in the back row knows about, that something's going on. You better believe your pastor needs to know it. Now I'm up here, now I'm comfortable. Better come back down. Your pastor needs to know what's going on. Your worship leader, you bet, he's the one also up front. Your elders, your deacons, your ushers, your deaconesses, youth pastors, your Sunday school teachers, wherever they are in a position of leadership in that church, they need to know what the plan is, and they need to have it written out to where they know what to do when these things happen. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody if something happens, that they can handle that situation, take care of that situation, get it out, and luckily, if they're doing their good job, most people in the congregation will never even know anything happened. That's our goal. That should be your goal as a security or safety team in your church. Listen, I'm going on 40 years old next year. I've got 3 kids of my own now. I don't want to fight at work anymore. I never wanted to fight. I'm not much of a fighter. You can tell. I break easy. I don't want to fight people, but if I have to, I will. But that's not where I want to go anymore. There's some guys, you can always tell the new cadets when they come out, right? Because they go into a house, they go into a domestic, and they're like, all right, who's in here? Who wants to wrestle, right? And they come in the house, they're looking for the biggest guy who's running his mouth, and they're hands on, and they're doing all this. Listen, I'm not about that anymore. And most of the guys that have been out are not about that anymore. We want to diffuse the situation as quickly as possible. Why? Because we don't want to be there. We don't want to be there either. Let's get out of here. We want to be out of this situation. We want to diffuse this as quickly as possible, but as safely as possible. That should be your goal in your churches. When these things happen, they should be able to be diffused quickly, safely as possible, and with little impact as possible. Now, we're not talking about someone coming in with a pistol or a shotgun. That's going to be a traumatic event. No matter any way you slice it. But that doesn't mean that behind the pulpit we need to have 2 Uzis ready to roll for the pastor to go, hands-on with them. So, but have those things written down. Get a copy of our sample here. Get an idea of what to do when those things may occur, and have it in your mind, already be thinking about it. None of us want to think about the worst case scenario, but all of us need to mentally imagine it in our heads. What would we do in the worst case scenario? So when it comes to that, if it does, God forbid, you are prepared to handle what you deal with. Out of the academy, we had no idea as a police officer what we were going to have to deal with on the road. And during our FTO time with our field training officer, it was the first time I'd ever seen dead bodies. First time I'd ever seen someone who was a drug user. First time I'd ever seen a child who had to deal with a domestic as they huddled in the corner of a room crying as their parents fought. Those things, there's no way to teach yourself and say, be prepared to see this, because you'll never be prepared to see a human body without their head, or to pick up pieces of human bodies and children on the side of the interstate from a crash. There's no way to prepare yourself for that. But you have to know and mentally know and say, I'm prepared for what I have to do, what I may have to do. You have to be able to do that. Commission. Those people that you can be prepared have to be commissioned. Sheepdog goal, to create a safe atmosphere so that disciples can be made in our churches. David was confrontive. He went to the threat. What did he do with? Hold on, let me get on the page with you here. I don't have that page, so I'm going to read it off here. What did David do with Goliath? Did he let Goliath come to him?
No.
No way. What did he do? The Bible says he ran towards Goliath. He was so eager. I wish I had that amount of faith. David was so eager. He ran towards that Goliath, that all of these mighty warriors of Israel were huddled behind the walls. And David ran towards him and said, guess what? My God's bigger than you, and I'm taking you on. You're going down, right? Yeah. And after he knocked him down, what did he do? Not only did he knock him down, but he took Goliath's own sword and said, I'm gonna swipe your head off, right? You can picture this little shepherd out there, right? All these guys going, oh my goodness, look at this. Here's David out there with this huge Goliath sword, hacking the head off of Goliath. He puts the head on the sword and walks back and goes, told you boys. What an amazing story. We don't tell that part of the story to kids, do we? We just tell them that Goliath got knocked down. We don't tell them he cut his head off afterwards. But David was confrontive. He ran towards a threat. Confronting the danger is not always violent. It's the power of words. In law enforcement, we call it verbal judo. You might have heard those words before. You're using your verbal skills to communicate and to talk to someone and de-escalate the situation. That's our goal.
Matt invited me up here to take part in his training. I do also have a training program called Beacon. It's an active shooter course that I developed in 2013 for places of worship, hospitals, churches, schools, workplaces, stuff like that. So we do a lot of emergency preparedness training. If you're not familiar with where our facility is, it's in Jefferson County, Summit Point area. BSR stands for Bill Scott Raceway. Whenever I say that, people just think it's a motorsports place, but there's a lot more going on up there. We teach safety teams. I'm glad to hear Matt bring that up in regards to how we might want to refer ourselves as a team. It's a safety team. That's pretty much what you want to stick with, because you will, media loves to hold somebody liable and accountable when they put you on the mic and you say that word security, and then you're just going to get the rest of the game of the questions thereafter. So a little bit about me, former trooper. Did work with Matt. Matt was coming in as I was leaving. So I did some overseas work after the state police, some contracting, and decided to do some executive protection work here in the United States and some instruction work with the State Department and anti-terrorism assistance program. So that's what I did, and then finally found a home at BSR and been there for a little over 5 years. So really love it. I've been teaching for a little over 10. I'm a law enforcement active shooter instructor, firearms instructor, tactics and driving. So we wear many hats, but I mean, after doing law enforcement for a little over 13 years, I mean, there's just not a lot of things to keep me interested anymore. So I just, you know, it's a good place to work up there, and we have a good time. But we have even a better time when we get invited to places like this and get to talk to people like you, because he's very, very correct when he was talking earlier about how to be prepared. We listen to the instructions being given to us, but without putting our hands on it, are we even capable of doing those things? Okay? And that's what I like about, you know, when me and Matt team up, we're not just up here flapping our jibs at you all day. We're actually have you do some things and participate a little bit, so you get to see. And that's why Chip is going to get a little bit of a surprise here coming, because he has no idea about what's about ready to happen to him. All right, nothing bad or anything. But anyone ever hear of the term, or I guess the acronym OODA Loop? Anyone ever hear about that? What about Lieutenant Colonel retired John Boyd, Air Force? No, never heard of him. All right, so OODA Loop stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. Okay. Now, when you hear that, I'm not going to go in the weeds on what that is quite yet. I want you to see it. And the only way to truly appreciate what OODA Loop really is just to have you do it. All right, think about something. Think about maybe you playing a sport and you're dribbling, let's say basketball. You're dribbling the ball down the court and you're first to defend it, your opponent. It's you and them, right? So you're taking all that in. And you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision that you feel will beat what you're observing from what your defender is displaying to you. And we're talking about this and happening in milliseconds. We're talking about this happening as if the shooter comes up the stairs and they're here right now. Okay? What do you have available to you right now, and you're within arm's reach right now, that you could use as a weapon? Yeah. We'll beat Jesus in him a little bit, right? All right, so no, you have the books, all right? You have the cane, you have the water bottles, you have, let's say, a cubicle office area, you have the keyboards, the mouses, it does not matter. Simply put, Chip does not want anything to hit him in the face, right? Who would? Whether it's a pen, the only thing he knows is it's an object coming at him. So, what I gave Matt a while ago is these stress balls. They're going to be your coffee mug, your water bottle, your hymn book. All right? We're going to, of course, you have to tie this in a big old knot. All right. There you go. I want a whole bunch of people to have them now. All right, anybody else?
Your picture, Michael.
You dropped it. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. Everybody else? All right. There's one. See, these things fly pretty good.
Yep.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
How many got left? Give me next.
That's just because it's Chip.
Anybody else?
That's because it's Chip.
It's Chip, yep.
All right. Now, Matt might not say this, but I will. Go ahead and keep them. If you want them afterwards, we've got plenty of them. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to knock on this door. Matt's going to bring Chip up. The only thing Chip's been advised of is to indiscriminately just point your finger gun at people and start shooting. Here's what I want you to see, all right? Chip has no idea what these black balls are, what they're made out of, what even they are, and he won't have the time to decipher what it is, okay? Because of that, you are messing with his orientation phase of his OODA Loop. which buys you precious seconds for, what's your name?
Wayne.
Wayne. Say you all start throwing stuff, short of him falling onto the ground and in the fetal position, you will see this, and he will try to dodge and move. Who's he accurately engaging at that point? Nobody. So isn't it an opportunity that we can take advantage of? Sure it is. Sure it is. I'm sorry, you? Wayne is going to sit there, not literally, but imagine the opportunity we just created for Wayne to do something proactive, who is the closest person to the person that just presented himself as a violent person to do us harm. All right? So think about that, and we'll go a little bit more into the weeds on it. Now, here's what I need from you. We're going to change this up, because he left this place thinking that Wayne's sitting right there, and you already told him that you'll be the closest person because you're in the whole choir thing and stuff. So we're going to change you up a little bit. I'm going to have, give me a handful of people from the back, please. And I just need you to stand up against the wall over there, facing this way. All right? Give me another handful of people just standing in the hall here. Handful of people here, just standing over here. If I can get you guys to kind of just be standing, all right, but in between the pews here, all right? Here's what I want you to do, all right? Now, we're changing this up from where Chip remembered this in the first place, how he remembered it, but not only do I want you to throw, like literally baseball throw this stress ball at him, okay? When you do that, I want you to move. I want you to yell, throw, move, all right? So maybe you're throwing, do you have anything? Does any of you have anything? Okay. All right. Here. Can't let you cheat yourself now. Come on. Hey, along with his description about the airplane thing, right? Anybody notice something odd about the whole Hudson River, that flight when it landed in the right? I mean, how often did they get instruction on A, B, and C? This is where it goes. This is what we do, right? Over 50% of them didn't know what to do, though they were told every single time they got on a flight. All right. So this is another part about putting your hands on it. Right? We can be told things all day long. All right, but without actually doing a practical exercise, we would just have no idea whether or not we're capable. So this is what's going to happen now. Again, you guys. I should see you guys make noise, throw the ball. So you're coming in a little bit, sir. Just move in a little bit. Yeah, I don't want you to be completely linear, everybody. I just want you kind of, so you got a field of view. Okay. All right? So you don't have to be like ducks in a row or anything. Just kind of spread out a little bit. Spread out a little bit. Come on. Spread out a little bit. There you go. Good. Good.
How about like this? No, as soon as they throw it at the same time.
Good. He'll see it as soon as he comes up.
Not from behind the organ, you won't.
Oh, from behind the organ? Yeah, but you won't be hiding behind that in a real situation, you know what I mean? Yeah, but he'll see your face. You will? I like it. I like the way you think. So, he's going to come up, right? Give me a couple more people in the middle. A couple more people in the middle with the stress ball. As soon as he comes up, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just stand there just for a second pause. And he gets 2 feet here. Okay? And he raises his finger. I want you to throw, move, and yell. Now I mean it on the yell stuff. Alright? So yell, but he's going to get sensory overload. He won't get sensory overload if he doesn't see any movement. You know, just watch what he does. Alright, you ready?
Hey, sir. Could you move up a little bit? Thank you. That's fine if it's just right there.
Use that finger gun, Chip. Come on up. Go get him, Chip. Oh no, Chip, you got air again. He gave up quick. Yeah, he did. Test, test. So, let's ask him a few questions, okay? Chip's old school, all right? He's used to a lot of things happening, dealing with stress and stuff, but you didn't know what was gonna happen when you came in this room, right?
Right.
What was the instructions given to you?
Come up through here, shoot. And
Okay.
screaming and hollering.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So when you did, you come up here, you got both feet on the floor here, and then what did you see?
everybody taking action.
Okay. What did you notice? What kind of action was that?
It was aggressive, action.
What were they throwing at you?
Well, actually, rubber ball.
Did you know that?
No.
Did it concern you?
Yes, it did. I thought they was rocks.
We all like it. All right, so that was concerning enough. Do you think you were accurately engaging anybody in this room with all that?
Well,
I
know I was ready to turn around and leave.
Really?
Yeah.
You're right. Who said
Yeah.
he gave up? I've actually, in his defense, I've actually had 3 people do just that. They came up with the red gun. We usually have a trainer, but they come up with the red gun, and then they see this, and they hurry up and go back where they came from. All right? Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. Good job. Good job.
I'm glad you disarmed him before you sent him up.
Aren't you the guy that he warned us about earlier with the tactical pants and?
That's right. You're right.
I've been saving that one.
Well,
Sorry.
So, to OODA Loop, Lieutenant Colonel John Boyd created this, or gave this, I wouldn't even say a theory. The process our mind goes through, whether we're driving, whether we're playing a sport, regardless, what our mind goes through, this thought process, and how to get ahead of maybe our competition, or whether it's sports, or whether in his world, strategic jet fighting, because he applied it in strategic operations, like fly the jet into the sun, and then now I'm going to go from a defensive position to an offensive position, and he was able to do that each and every time successful. He got nicknamed 42nd Boyd because of it, because he was admitted into a prestigious flight school early, didn't have near the required amount of flight missions required. But he was smart. He was smart. So it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. I'm observing Wayne, and I'm going to, based off my cultural upbringing, background, experience, skill sets, current level skill sets, I'm going to orient myself to Wayne. Is he faster than me? Did I see him handle the ball quick? Has he got quick feet? Is he on his toes? Is he mobile? Is he, how is he portraying himself to me as an opponent? So, basketball again. So I'm going to make a decision off my orientation of what I'm observing from him. I'm going to make a decision. Do I jab step left, dribble right, pass, or shoot? Okay? And I make that decision, and then I make sure that I'm 100% committed on that decision that I make. That's the act part. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Okay? And that's just what our minds go through. Coming up to the 4-way. Is that person going to stop? I'm not so sure. They don't look like they're stopping. I don't see the front tires slowing down. Things like, I'm in the grocery store. My wife says I have 30 minutes to get home and let the dogs out before they make a mess all over the house, but then she wants me to get 10 items on the grocery list, so as us men do, we look for the fastest way out of that grocery store by saying, how many items he's got? How many items she got? Okay, this is the fastest line. That's planning. It's all planning. You're planning when you're driving, you're planning when you're going to the grocery store, and it's a mental plan of how to get things done safely. You do it when inclement weather hits. You know, you don't follow as closely the car in front of you. All right, you don't go as fast on the roadway when it's the potential of black ice and stuff like that. All right, and he hit the nail on the head. The churches, places of worship, in and by themselves, are not immune from the violence that are going on out there. Personal conflict, domestic spillover, and theft. Those are three big ones. November 2017, Southern Springs, Texas. Church shooting, 26 dead. October 2018, Pittsburgh Jewish Synagogue. And just most recently, New Zealand. Horrible, horrific event. Okay? And it doesn't, regardless of your faith, regardless of what it is that you're worshiping, there is somebody out there that doesn't like it. Okay? Literally Frederick, Maryland, 40 minutes from where you sat, a female, 16 years old, was planning a Columbine-style school attack. She was arrested March 23rd, and her attack date was April 4th of last year. This is just last year. How did she get arrested? Her dad. Her dad found her journal, turned the journal over to school officials. School officials notified law enforcement. This was a troubled 16-year-old, for whatever reason, wasn't getting the help or necessary help that she needed in dealing with things or what was causing her to do this. But understand that this threat is not going away. Okay, and that's what I will jump at the chance to help Matt and everybody else to better prepare themselves and get this information across as much as, because it's so needed. And I think that, especially nowadays, our mindset is someone will take care of it. Someone will. Well, national average for police response is 3 to 6 minutes. Okay? Minimum 3 minutes. The national average for an active shooter event occurring and be done, over 50% is less than 5 minutes. What are you doing in that 3 to 5 minutes before they get here? Hopefully not. Hopefully, again, Matt's, put that information out there, be proactive with it, understand that you can't avoid it. You can't put the blinders on because it's happening everywhere, okay? And it's just, sometimes we need the dose of realism to say that it can't be ignored. So I very much appreciate you guys taking your time out of a nice warm Sunday or Saturday to come out here and do this. This is what I want to see. I love doing it, and I love doing it with Matt, and I appreciate him inviting us up here. So hopefully that kind of gets the juices flowing a little bit in mind, gets you to ask the right questions. I'm going to leave a couple business cards out there in the foyer table. If you guys have any questions, or shoot me an email, or Matt knows how to get a hold of me or anything, but feel free to reach out to me, okay? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Will we be going into any of those scenarios today?
What's that?
Well, for example, we just had a good example there of what the impact might be on the shooter. But one of the big questions that I have in our facilities, or any facilities really, is that if you have an intruder, and as you stated, Matt, earlier, you have to plan. But if you don't include the congregation, you've got ants running everywhere.
What's your name?
You've got targets running everywhere, different directions.
What's your name?
Peter.
Peter. I love where Peter's going with it. Yes, he's 100% correct. Is today? No. We're giving you the information, okay? And then here's what happens. It's a phase thing. You can't really do it all in one day, or we'd be here for 8 hours, right? But here's the thing. This is a 2-dayer, right?
do that?
Overnight.
Overnight.
There's a lot to be done, really. Yeah, there's a lot to be done. And think about phases, okay? So now you got the foundational information that it's important that we have planning. Okay, now we need to prepare. Now we need, let's practice that plan.
Exactly.
Okay? Let's practice that plan. And let's try to up the ante on preventing anything from happening by establishing a safety team or a safety committee that oversees a safety team. Okay? Now, once all that's established and we've got an idea of where to start from in our environment, let's get started with some practical exercises. Well, who's the subject matter experts to help us out with that? Right?
And we can do practical, but here's the issue. It all comes to legal waivers.
Yeah.
We would need legal waivers from everyone here for us to do hands-on training. If you would like to move on in that step, please talk to me, talk to Nathan. We can get you to that next step. But like you said, this today is really laying the foundations.
Understood.
Of this,
Our
yeah.
concerns, because, I mean, you mentioned one of the issues that I have, and that is that my daughter-in-law lost a half dozen of her neighbors in Pittsburgh.
Mm.
And they did have safety training and everything, but when it came down to it, they were in separate rooms. They didn't know what to do. They all scrambled, the majority of them.
Let me throw this out there. There's good training, and then there's very, very bad training that develops what we call training scars. Okay? Say you go through this today, and you say, hey, we're good for a whole year. We've checked that active shooter training box. We're good for a whole year. That's a training score. You should now move to level 2. What's level 2? Start planning, start doing a threat assessment. What's the vulnerabilities and the gaps in the current policies and how we do things here at the church. Okay, so now that let's get a safety committee to look at this assessment. Okay, like we talked about, Matt, myself, there's people out there that you can reach out to for advice. It's not going to sit there and charge you an arm and a leg to do that. We literally come out here and look and help you out, develop that. Did the same thing for Shenandoah Bible Baptist Church down the road. All right, Chuck Hess, deputy out of Jefferson County, very good guy. He reached out to me and we did scenario-based training. Everybody got a lot out of it. I'll just say this. I've trained a lot of safety teams, and it would behoove you, if you have armed individuals as part of your safety team. I'm a big advocate of prevention, like Matt's already mentioned. Sometimes your nonverbal presence and how you present that nonverbal body language is enough to diffuse the situation as a trooper. And he was correct. We picked the biggest guy out the loudest guy out of the bunch on a bar fight, whatever, some disorderly issue. And that's the individual we addressed. And that individual, because we addressed it, that diffused the whole situation. All right? Thank God I didn't have to draw my gun too often when I was in the state police. But I only had to draw it when I felt my life was in danger. And that was very few times, because I was cognizant enough of my surroundings and weighing my options on how to deconflict this situation without resorting to the last resort. Okay, and that weapon, if you do have one, is a last resort. It doesn't make you, it doesn't give you any other additional authority but to protect you and the life of others that you're charged to protect. That's it. It's a last resort, should be considered as such. But it behooves you to go through training involving, I know airsoft might scare some people, or paint munitions might scare some people, but it is a big, big difference. He'll tell you, you get guys out there, even guys with experience that are using cover and shooting and stuff, when they know that there's stuff coming back, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different experience, okay? So involving your training regimen that is realistic and practical and relative will benefit you by leaps and bounds. And if you have armed people, make sure that you're doing scenario-based training involving them to potentially use it, to make the decision whether they need it or not. I've had people shoot an individual seated in a chair just because they were non-compliant. One of the scenarios that I did was a mentally disturbed person who had trouble hearing, partially deaf. He was seated in a chair. Safety officer comes up. Let me see your hands. I need you to stand up. Come with me. Oh, you're not listening. Boom, boom. Really? All right. Well, both of those rounds that came out of that gun has an attorney attached to it now. And now you're going to go see the man on the carpet. So, you know, so a lot comes from that. We can draw a lot from that. Yeah, I know you don't bash the guy, you don't stuff, but it's a discussion, obviously. But thank God it happened in training, and not, we didn't wait for the situation to happen, and then we realized that under stress we didn't make the right decision. Okay? Sorry, I started rambling there, brother.
Hey, we already clapped for you, so.
Thank you. But hey, feel free to reach out at any point in time. I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Side note, Nathan's twin brother Isaac is a state trooper as well, and is one of our chaplains as well. So that's the family connection there, with Nathan also being a former trooper. We're going to take a snack break now.
An amazing rate. And if you believe that, yeah, I'm going to try. So if I don't get it done, please get a copy of the PowerPoint notes. I do see that some of them are gone, but whoever took the last one missed the last several pages. So make sure you go down to page 21 and take that. So if I can't get this all in today, sound like I heard a little bit of feedback there. Pick up a copy of the PowerPoints, and then you'll have something for your notes there. Okay, as we come back, we need to remember, and I appreciate Nathan doing that. And like he said, if you want more training when it comes to specific active training, practical training when it comes to that, please let us know afterwards. Come up here and write me down your email address, and maybe we can do something like that. Here's the big thing. The state police has no problems with me coming in here and talking, but when it comes to practical things like that, you know, the reason I had Chip do it is Chip signed a waiver form. Anything that we do when it comes to, you know, Chip didn't know what he was signing. But anything we do when it comes to the state police for legal reasons, just the same as you do with your church. If we were to come in here and start firing off sim rounds and someone has a heart attack or someone doesn't know what's going on and they engage us and it's a mess, then we're all in problems. And unfortunately, that's the way. We used to, as part of this training, include takedowns, body holds, arm bars, and we would practice those things as a group. They took that out, saying anything hands-on is against the rules. So I apologize for that, but if you want that kind of training, please ask me, because we can do that. You have to sign about 15 pages that includes saying that you understand that you may die. But I assume that's possible when you go to the DMV and wait in line. So one of the things we need to realize is that we need to stop living in denial. These are massacres, not shootings. What does that mean? Shootings are what we do when we go shoot at the range. They're not there shooting. They're there to do something. What are these people there to do? They're there to commit a massacre. There's a big difference. We need to stop calling these shootings their church massacres, killing a large number of helpless and unresisting people. Boy, that's every Sunday school class. That's almost every church. Why? Because we don't expect it to happen there. We must control who walks into our buildings. Very quickly, a story I have, this actually is on the next page, but I'll say it now. In Miami in 2016, a church was getting ready for their Easter program. It's right about this time of the year. And as they were getting ready for their Easter program, one of the ushers at the doors, one of the greeters, had been trained in security, safety things, knew what to watch for, knew what to observe. And as he observed people walking into the church that morning, he observed a male with a large jacket on in Miami. And as that guy walked up to the church, he could see a barrel of a weapon underneath his jacket. And he immediately engaged that individual, stopped him where he was. He didn't recognize him, didn't engage him with his firearm, but immediately went to him and said, "Sir, what's your name? What can we do for you? Are you new to here? Are you visiting a family or a friend?" The guy was nervous. He didn't know how to respond, so he, based on his training, said, "I'm going to hold you here until law enforcement gets here. I see you have a weapon," and was able to control that male. What they found on that individual was he had 2 pistols, he had a rifle behind his back, and he had about 600 rounds of ammunition in his pockets. But because of the training that usher had, that greeter had, he was ready to observe and watch people as they came. So we need to control who walks into our buildings. A lot of our churches during the service, the doors are left unlocked, and all the people are confined into the sanctuary. The church doors are all left unlocked. No one walks in the hallways. No one knows who's coming in or out. Those are the things we need to start implementing in our churches. In our church at IBC, during the church service, the doors are locked. And there's an usher that stands out in the hallway, and if you come while the service is in, they'll let you in, but they'll greet you and say, "I'm sorry, can I help you? The church service already started. Are you late? Come on in. Are you here visiting?" They start asking questions. But they guard who comes in and who comes out. Not only for those strangers, but also for the teenagers who like to slip in and out, right? We have to control who comes in and out of our buildings. A mass murderer does not fear death, only failure. Armed security is needed. Never lose your sense of outrage that this is necessary. You as a security team leader or a safety team leader, you need to know people in your church that are armed. They may not be on the security team, but you need to know individuals in your church and if they're armed. There's several police officers at my church that go there with me. We don't all sit together. We'd like to, but we've talked about it. We all sit in different places in the church. There's one guy that sits up in the front. There's another guy that sits in the front on this side. I sit in the back on this side, and there's another guy who sits in the back on the other side. Why is that? It's because we know we're all armed. We know we're always armed. We have to be, legally, we have to always be armed. And so we know for sure there's at least 4 guys. But we also know that there's other people who are always armed in that church. And we know where they are. Those people know who they are. And they know who we are. The last thing you want to happen if there is an incident is for 15 people in your church to stand up with their firearms and start firing rounds downrange. That would be a catastrophic failure, and it would get people killed. So that's the last thing you want to do. You want to know who those people are and make sure, as we talked at the beginning, they're legally allowed to have that firearm. Start detecting, like we talked about a little bit. Watch the way that people walk. What do people do when they have concealed weapons? Pay attention to the way they walk upstairs. When people have concealed weapons, when they go up to the top step, what do they normally do? Readjust. When they stand up from a sitting position, what do? Readjust. When they walk, they might keep their hands up like this. They may watch that right arm. They might keep that right arm up, right? Or they may do the Clint Eastwood walk, right? Pay attention. Do some study on your own. Be careful and watch those people. Know who they are. When you shake someone's hand, do the police officer shake. It's good to see you, right? Pay attention. When you give them hugs and feel for what could be there. There's different things that you can train your greeters. But your greeters may not be on your security team. But they're the first line of defense for people coming into your church. They're the ones that are standing there welcoming people in. But they're also the first line to where if they see something out of control in the parking lot outside the church, they can use their radio, if they have one, send a flare up if they need it. Do whatever you decide as your safety team, the best way to let the team know, hey, there's something that could be going on out here. What are some of the triggers? Robbery. In our church, what do? We pass the offering plate, right? And every offering plate goes across every aisleway. You guys don't understand, maybe you do because you've had a personal impact on it. If you are a drug addict and you need your fix, everything you do, everything about you is focused on getting your next fix. You see that tray go in front of you and it's loaded with envelopes and money. What does their mind go to? Boy, I'd like that.
Yeah.
And then what happens? It all goes to the back of the church, right? And the way our church used to do it, they used to dump it into this big box, and then you had 85-year-old Jim walk that box by himself down the hallway. Guess what? They pay attention to those things, and they're watching. Now at our church, we never do that. We always have 2 people walk the money, and one of those people is always armed. The church doesn't know that. It's just one of our elders. But they always walk the finance committee member down with the money. Pay attention to those things. Domestic spillovers. Do we have those at church?
Yeah.
You better believe it. This is a big one. Out of all the things that we've had in our own sanctuary here, domestic spillover is one of the biggest things. It may not be violent, but it's going to be a problem. Why? You took my kids from me. We're divorced. You have custody. Guess where those kids are going to be every Sunday? In that church. And I want my kids back. Right? I'm going to come to church and I'm going to get my kids back because I know they're there and I'm going to come there and I'm going to get them.
Yeah.
Do your Sunday school teachers know what to do when that event happens? What about protection orders? Does your safety team need to know if there's a protection order put against someone? Yes. They need to be aware of that. Those people aren't allowed into the building. A lot of times when, as a chaplain and also as a pastor, when marriages fall apart, who do they blame? The pastor, right? Because this beautiful stained glass window of a marriage that once started, and it was so beautiful to look at, has been cracking for years, right? For years, this stained glass window of a marriage has been cracking, and they haven't done a thing. And then, the day it finally happens when that stained glass window falls and shatters and breaks all over the place, and they come to their pastor, they come to me as a chaplain in the state police, and what do they say? Fix my marriage. You need to fix my marriage. Do they blame pastors?
Yeah.
You bet. Why? Because sometimes pastors may give advice that they don't agree with. Those are situations that we're going to see a lot of. Personal conflict or disagreement, gang activity, mental illness is another big one in our churches today. Skip over that. We've talked about a lot of those things. Look at your church website. Like I talked before, what are you advertising on that church website? Are you advertising when your pastor's going to be away, when he's there? Any controversial topics? Do you have pictures of your pastor, right? You have pictures of your pastor on your website. Not only that, but you have a parking spot at your church that says pastor's parking spot, right? He went through seminary to get that parking space. He's not going to want to give it up. But then everybody knows if they've got something against your church, guess what? They know where the pastor's at. They've got a picture of him on their Facebook page, and they know when he's there and when he's not there. When he's there, when he's not there. Things to think about, guys. Do you post your financial indicators? Do you post how much money your church made in your bulletin from the last Sunday? Listen, that's a lot of money to a lot of people. And if you put in your bulletin that your church made $30,000 last Sunday, guess what? They're going to start thinking, boy, we got to get our hands on that money. There's a lot of money coming into this church. Where do they keep the money? Where do they put the money after hours? We've worked several burglaries at churches in this community where people have broken into churches. Why? Because they know that a church is a place that has money. Now our church, and I hope your churches are the same after Sunday church, none of that money stays in the church. It all goes to the bank and gets put in the drop box. But these guys don't know that. I hope your church has a plan for that. What do? Do you say, oh, we made $100,000 last week? Those are things that you need to understand. Not that you need to change, but you need to adapt. 3 R's: recognize, report, respond. Some of the things that Nathan talked about. We need to recognize the threat. We need to report the threat. I'm way behind on this. Let me see if I can catch up here. And we need to respond to it. Recognize. We talked about this a little bit. The suspicious, recognize the suspicious, the potential for problems. Example is clothing behaviors, like I talked about. The potential for problems. Leaders should know about these potential issues and be prepared for them by planning and increasing awareness. Like the pulling of the mask to get more oxygen. Your leaders in your church or your faith communities, they need to be prepared to where if something happens, they know the procedure. They know that Matt Gilmore is going to be sitting always in the back right corner. They know that this deputy is going to be sitting here. They know the people that are there to respond immediately if something happens, who've had the training, who are ready to act. If you don't have police officers in your church, shame on you. You need to be a bigger witness to police officers, because there's a lot that need to be in your churches. There's a lot of police officers that need your church. So get out there, interact with these officers, get them involved, not just to have them there as a security member, but they need the witness in the faith community to be there to support them. Report. Report it immediately to the designated member or person. It is very important that only a few people be designated to receive the reports and that they be trained. Why is that important? Yeah, avoid confusion. Too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? Too many sergeants and not enough troopers. We'll put it in today's terms. Why? Because everybody wants to be in charge. But when you have a situation happen, you need to know who to go to. Who is the person? Who are the people that are there to report to? Some churches, and I like the way they do it, all their safety team has the same polo shirts on. Now, if you came in as a visitor, you would have no idea that the guys with the blue polo shirts on that say Bennington United Methodist Church on them are part of their safety team. But they just look like they're greeters, other fellow ushers. But everyone in the leadership there at the church, everyone in any kind of teaching spot at that church, knows that the people that are involved in that have the blue polo shirts on. If something happens, if someone's having a domestic situation, they can look for people with a blue polo shirt on, and they know to go to those people and say, hey, listen, you need to go to the third floor and deal with a situation there. It's very important. They should in turn imply the plan or policy or plan that they have already been in place to reduce a potential harm and remove the threat, including some potential domestic situations or issues. At our church, we have above every door, and this needs to change, we have above every door names of Bible books. So we can say, go to the Leviticus door. What's the problem with that? If you have a critical situation at your church, and you're on the phone and you tell the first responders, go to the Leviticus door, they're going to have to look with binoculars to see the Leviticus door, right? If you go to our schools, guess what you're going to see above every door entranceway? A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. You know why? They're not obtrusive. They're just small placards that stand above the door. But you can say, the shooter is by door 4. Guess what? Every officer that comes to that school, we can immediately drive around that school and find door number 4 a lot faster than we can find the southwest entrance, third door, the one that goes into the cafeteria. None of us know where that is. Those are the kind of things that a security team needs to put into place, that you need to have effective there to where you can say, go to door number 1. And you probably won't win $1 million. You can try. Respond appropriately. Appropriateness, again, will depend upon planning and practice. Appropriate responses must be developed and practiced before they need it to be effective. Responding indicates a readiness. Reacting is what everyone does. Leadership must recognize the need and take steps to protect the faithful through planning. To protect, we must prepare. Before an incident, I was just reading this, I apologize. Identify and put in place a security committee charged with drafting the plans, and we've given you some of those. I see they're all gone, so if you didn't get one, I can send you one. Conducting or arranging for a physical security assessment of the facilities. What's a security assessment? If you want a security assessment done, you contact the West Virginia State Police. We'll send a team member of 3 people to your church to your facility, what do? We write down every entranceway. We write down what you have as planned in your security. We write down what the weaknesses are. We look at your Sunday school classrooms and say, this is not good. We tell you, we give you a report of what needs to be done at your facility to help to make that facility more safe. What does it cost? Absolutely nothing. Something we do to provide to you as a service. Some of these other services, I love Nathan to death, but there's a charge. Just keep that in mind. And we, as the state police, we're not endorsing BSR. That's just an option that's out there. But a good option, but we're not endorsing that. Why not train everybody? Statistics again, approximately 23% of the aggressors in faith organization attacks were affiliated with the ministry. Members, past members, employees, or volunteers. When we say affiliated, we mean actual staff affiliation, not just members of the church. We're talking senior staff members of those facilities. That's a large number, isn't it? And the number of attacks that we see in churches, you know where 78% of those attacks happen? What do you think, inside or outside the church? Outside the church. The majority of violent attacks in church and faith communities occur outside the church building. Parking lots. Why? Because everybody's got to come outside. Yep. It's a safety thing with an attacker. They feel safe when they're outside other than when they're inside of a confined building. Those are things we need to look at. We can do all kinds of training and preparation for inside the building, but if we have no security outside the building for anything, that's when those incidences can occur. Oh boy, more stats. Oh, I'm sorry, 69% occur outside. That's what happens when I talk before I'm ready. Why do you think that 60% occur in off hours? Is that a strange statistic? Why do we think that is? 60% of these attacks occur in off hours of the church, so not during a function.
Less witnesses.
Okay? When fewer people, who are they there to attack? Specific people. Most people have a target in mind of who they want to attack. And I'm not talking about just violent weapon attacks, but I'm talking about physical fight, physical attacks, abuse. Those things occur on off hours. Why? Because they know that person's there. Everyone knows our pastor drives a certain car. Everyone knows when he's there in the church and when he's not. And it's easier to make that attack off hours. A lot of times when people decide to do these attacks, they may not be there with the intent to commit that violent act. They may just be there to confront him, but eventually it evolves into that violent attack. It's easier on off hours. We have 10 minutes. Oh, that's a good one. 73% of these involve a single attacker. Some just ideas that we have from our thing. Policy for securing from outside access all except auditorium doors during worship. You cannot lock your... Sometimes the pastor might go over might preach a little long, and you might go, people are late to get to Chick-fil-A after, not Chick-fil-A, but Cracker Barrel afterwards. But you cannot lock your people inside your building. You have to be able to let them out, but it's exterior doors in. That's also fire code. Prior to service, security committee to be positioned all to observe parking areas. They need to be outside. You need to have people inside and outside. Be out there to greet people as they come in during the shifting of classes or when those times happen, of when people are moving around. Okay. This isn't involved with attacks as much, but securing the faithful also includes protecting our faith leaders against false accusations. I hope your church has a plan in place for when your pastor, if he's a male, are they allowed to go and visit with females by themselves? Should their doors, all of our pastors in our church, their doors have cut out windows. And so there's no place in our church, well, there are, but when counseling occurs, because pastors are going to counsel, they always can be seen. There's never that veil of secrecy there. I hope you have something in plan for those things. When a pastor gets an after-hours call and has to go out, does he have someone else to go with him? I hope so, or her. Do they have someone to go with them? No adults can be alone with children one-on-one. I hope that you have plans in place. I hope that you have some sort of a background procedure for workers with children. You would be shocked if you saw the amount of sex offenders in Berkeley County that we deal with. We have a filing cabinet with 6 different pullouts that's completely full. We don't have one, we have 2 in Berkeley County. Just in Berkeley County of sex offenders. Wow. Know who those people are. We have a list in our church of people that go to our church. You can't force them not to come to church, okay, unless they have restrictions about being around children. But you need to know who those people are. I'm the first person to tell you that I believe in redemption and forgiveness, but we also need to be aware. And part of protecting the flock is saying we know who those people are. We make them register for life for a reason, and we as a church should know who they are. The lists are online. It's free. You can get on. You can see who those people are, where they live. You can see Berkeley County maps of little red dots of every one of their houses. Yeah. First question when people call and say, is this a safe neighborhood? I say, look at the sex offender map. Because if you pull that up, and some of you are thinking, boy, I should have pulled that up before I bought my house. Yeah. If you pull that up and all around you is red dots, not a safe place for me. I wouldn't be there. So know what to do. Policies of adults. Selecting teachers, running background checks on people. Listen, you hate that you have to do it anymore, but it's needed. Items to cover in that: bomb threats, abduction, missing children, hostage situations, all the different things that we can, and that's not there, all the different things that we can see and interact with in our churches. Also, how should we handle this situation? What do we do when law enforcement arrives? When law enforcement arrives on the scene, who's in control? Law enforcement. We appreciate your help. The minute that there's a police officer anywhere near you, put your guns away. Why? Because I'm going to kill you just as fast as I'll kill anybody else. Why? Because when there's an active shooter, okay, we are trained now, after Columbine, to stop the threat immediately. Yeah. We don't ask questions. We don't say, put your hands up. If you have a weapon out and we know that there's an active shooter actively killing people, and you come around the corner in a hallway with your pistol out, guess what? I'm sorry. Yep. If law enforcement's on scene, you put your handguns down, you get down on your knees, and you just wait for us to clear the situation. We love your help, but you have a lot of people responding as quickly as we can to take care of the situation who's been trained. So if they get there, you let them handle it. But like Nathan said, there's a time lag there. So you need to be prepared on what to do during that time lag. Listen, the time lag is only going to get worse. When I started as a trooper in West Virginia in Berkeley County in 2006, we had 29 working road troopers on the road. 29 in Berkeley County. That didn't include sergeants. That didn't include our supervisors. We had 29 road troopers. You want to take a guess at how many we have today? 14. We have 14 now in Berkeley County. Take a guess at how much the population has increased from 2006 till now. An enormous amount. Guess what? We're losing more troopers, aren't we? We're losing more. And guess what? You got at least 4 or 5 others with their applications to go out somewhere else. So the amount of trained law enforcement out there is not what it should be and not where it was. We get complaints all the time. I haven't seen a trooper in my neighborhood for this long. Or, why aren't you out running traffic on this road? In Jefferson County, guess who the trooper is out all the time? It's one of us. We're by ourselves. We're the only one. There used to be 14 troopers in Jefferson County. Now there's 1 per shift. It's only going to get worse. So why is this training so important? Because that time that Nathan told you, the 3 minutes, guess what? It's expanding. That 3 minutes is getting a lot longer to where we have to be able to respond as quickly as we can.
That was a question I had.
Yeah.
To respond to, say, this facility, what would the timetable be?
It all depends. Usually our barracks are right there in Martinsburg, but the chances of a guy being at the barracks is not a guarantee. So you don't know if they're down south in Inwood off Specs Run Road, or all the way up and off Broadline up in Falling Waters. They may be down in Sportsman's Paradise down by the river. Guess what? It's going to take them quite a while. Not only that, but they got to finish with whatever. Let's say they're dealing with a violent domestic and they get an arrest. They're done. You're not going to open your back door and let the guy go and say, "Okay, man, out you go." So there's a lot of situations. That's why it's so important. This training is so important to get this stuff implemented in your faith communities, because you have something in writing. You have a team. Even if it's two of you in the church that say, "Let's develop this. Let's practice this. Let's work on this. Let's get some further training." And you know what to do. 2 people trained is better than no one trained.
Yeah, but that's an issue that we have. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
But that's what we keep hearing, is that we call 911 and they'll be here in less than 5 minutes.
Or buy a shotgun and go on your back porch and just shoot off a couple rounds. Right?
That's what I don't understand.
Now I'm getting political.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Especially being out here at the distance, like you said.
Well, you're pretty close here compared to where you could be. Very quickly, to finish up, and we have to skip through a lot of this. The Houston model, and we talked about this a little bit before, is run, hide, fight. Something good that you can train everybody, Sunday school teachers, pastors, anyone in your church should understand this concept. First thing, run. If there's a problem, get out as fast as you can. Why? Because if you stay and you huddle in where you're at, you make yourself an easier target. Listen, if there's a shooting going on downstairs, we're not all going to huddle in this room. We're going to get out. You need to train your people to get out. If you have my child in your Sunday school, and your planning is to huddle my son or my little girl in a corner and just wait, then I'm not ever bringing my kid back there again. Get them out of the situation as fast as possible. If you can't run, you need to hide. If you can't run, you need to hide. And that hiding means being quiet, staying secure, locking the doors where you're at. Listen, if there's an active shooter and they go down a hallway and they're testing those doors like they do on car doors, that door's locked. They're probably not going to go in there as easily as if they would if they went in and the door's open and they walk into a Sunday school classroom. Your teachers need to be ready. At our church, we have these little brackets on our doors. Do you know how much those cost? They were cheap. Less than $5. And they take about 2 minutes to put on. And they're on the side of your door, and all they do is you slide it down. Close your door, you slide it down. And with that little bracket slid down, guess what? You're not getting in that door. You're not getting in that door. Obviously, if you had a grenade or something, you're going to get in the door. Or if, Reggie Smith from, the Buffalo Bills or the refrigerator comes, they might eventually get in that door. But they're going to go to the weakest place they can to cause as much harm as they can. Invest in those types of things. If you're hiding, the last thing, like Nathan talked to you about, fight. If you have to hide, be prepared to fight, using all-out aggression and violence of action to overcome the shooter. Boy, it's something we don't want to talk about with our choir members. We don't want to talk about that with our Sunday school leaders, because a lot of times those people are not people who are aggressive. But in our schools today, guess what? We're teaching our teachers how to kill people with scissors, knives, whatever they can find. It's kind of the mama bear thing. Listen, my wife is a very easygoing, lovely person. But if someone was attacking one of our kids, she's going to scratch their eyeballs out. She would. She would bite them in the throat. She would do whatever she could to protect our kids. And those Sunday school teachers in your church, they need to be aware that because of who they are, in a position of leadership that they are in, they need to be ready to fight with all-out aggression and violence. Boy, we hate to even use those words, but it has to be done. Why? Because our job is to protect the flock as overseers. We have to protect that flock. It all means necessary. Run away. Hide if we can't have to. But if you have to hide, you better be prepared to fight. This is a really deep topic. This can be a really depressing topic. Something that a lot of our church members, look at all this stuff I had to skip over, but it's okay. The other things were easy. This one just, you have to click like 100 times. We're almost there. Okay. Some things, if you have your cell phone, you can take a picture of the slide if you grabbed a copy of it. Some different door jamming devices, safety film for glass, an active shooter, a great resource from the Department of Health, DHS. Hold on. Department of Health and Services. Great website there to research. Cameras. Paul's not here today like he usually is. Our leader of our chaplains is Jim Mitchell down in Charleston. He's the one that at the time there was only 3 of us. Isaac Harmon, myself, and Jim Mitchell is the one that developed a lot of this material. That's his resource information, his contact information, and my contact information is on there as well. Any questions you may have, please ask. Send me an email. I'll try to get back with you as quick as I can. When I'm gone for 2 days off, I come back, I usually have 20 emails, so I will get to it. But if you have any questions, you want to do something further, you think that, hey, there's a church that's not here today that would really appreciate this training, contact them, say, I'd love to get you involved in this. I don't get paid extra to do this. We don't get anything. I do this because I love to do this and I feel it's a real need. So please let them know if they have any questions, they want to do something like this in their own congregation. Please contact us and we'd love to set that up for them. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for Chip and for the church here for putting this together. And you are dismissed. I'm so used to saying let's pray to dismiss, but I'm sorry?
Are you collecting?
No.
No.
Just needed a head count.
Yeah.
May I just ask a question?
Sure.
When you said if you have a gun and when the police arrive and you're the actual good guy, should you said put it out from you and lay down. Should you reholster it or?
If it's holstered, don't unholster it. If you see the police coming in, I would holster the gun. I'm never going to lay my gun on the floor. That's not what I meant. I meant if the police are there actively coming into the building and you can't reholster it, don't be doing this when we're coming around the corner. Get that gun away from you as quickly as possible, or let them know and say, I have a firearm, but the first thing you need to do is get down on the ground, put your hands up over your head, and say, because they're not going to stop with you. They're not going to stop and identify you. They're going to come up to you. There's going to be a team that's going to come through there, like we've been trained. They're going to quickly go to you, see what's going on. If you're on the ground with your hands, they're going to keep moving to where the sounds of gunfire is, or to eliminate the threat. So you want to let them know as quickly as possible. Is there a perfect way to do it? No, but you want to just be as openly verbal as you can about who you are or what you have. But the last thing we want to do is kill somebody who, comes around with their 2 6-shooters, So please do that. We do scenario training at the academy. Like he was talking about, at the academy, we have a virtual reality training scenario machine where you walk into. It's a whole room by itself. Every wall is a TV screen. There's a person sitting behind a mirror, and they put you through all kinds of training situations. You talk to the person on the screen, and they communicate back with you. And with each scenario, there's 400 or 500 different outcomes that the person with the computer can tell that person to do, say, act. Active shooter situations, it's great training. But you'd be surprised at how many civilians get smoked. Yeah. And these are by trained troopers. But those are tense situations. And when they bring the lights on in that train scenario and all you can hear is screaming and gunfire, and you're right there standing there with your buddy, and you're moving through this church or a school, and there's kids running out in front of you and they're screaming, and you got this teacher running around the corner going, hey, they're all, you don't know, that's such a tense situation that you need to be prepared and trained, and that's why we said it's all about training, but good training. Be prepared for those types of things. We can't do that today, but great scenario training would be a good idea.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, one more. But I'll shake your hand. No? Yeah.
For the church assessment, the security assessment, there's a name here, Major D. Is that who we contact for something like that? Our church desperately needs.
Yeah, Major Deeds was the one that was in charge of that, but he has since gotten frustrated with it and said it's all up to the troop level. So what you would, instead of going through, which I think is the best way to do it. Listen, I'm from this community. I care about my own community. The best way to reach us here is to go through local instead of calling Charleston. Major Deeds is in Charleston. He doesn't care about your churches up here. Not to say he doesn't care, but this is a long ways away from Charleston. If you want a security assessment done, contact your local state police branch. So get you in contact with Captain Platt, P-L-A-T-T. He's out of Charlestown. And Captain Platt will arrange the security assessment for your facility. And then we'll figure out a time with your church leadership to be there. Usually takes about 4 or 5 hours for us to go around, and then we'll present a assessment to you. That also comes with lots of waivers. It's like signing a lease for your house or a new mortgage. So, all right. Well,